What if the most powerful thing you could do today has nothing to do with working harder, pushing through, or figuring it all out on your own? What if the single act that could change everything is something most people overlook, skip past, or save for when things get truly desperate? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you is going to shift how you see your mornings, your struggles, and your story. There are battles you are fighting right now that no one else can fully see. Maybe it is exhaustion that goes beyond just being tired. Maybe it is a weight that presses on your chest the moment your eyes open. Maybe it is fear disguised as productivity or anxiety wearing the mask of planning. You keep moving, you keep pushing, but deep down something feels heavy and unresolved. And the longer you carry it alone, the heavier it gets. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. You were never supposed to carry this alone. Not because you are weak, but because there is a power available to you that most people only tap into when they have no other option. And the truth is, calling on that power first, before you exhaust yourself trying to fix everything, is actually the wisest and most strategic thing you can do. Today we are talking about what happens when you genuinely call on God and invite Him into your situation, not as a last resort, not as a backup plan, but as your first move, your anchor, and your source. Because the moment you do, something shifts. And that shift is not small. It is not subtle. God begins to move in ways no human effort ever could, even when you do not yet see how. Let me take you somewhere for a second. Picture someone who has tried everything. They have been strategic, they have worked the angles, they have asked the right people, studied the right information, made the right moves, and still, nothing is opening. Still, the breakthrough feels just out of reach. Sound familiar? Because most of us have lived inside that exact feeling. Now here's the thing about that season. It is not evidence that God has forgotten you. It is actually an invitation. It is a moment that is pulling you towards something deeper than just a solution. It is pulling you toward a relationship, toward trust, toward the kind of faith that does not just believe when things are going well, but holds steady when everything feels uncertain. The Bible gives us something incredibly specific about this. In Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 3, God Himself says these words, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things that you do not know." Think about that for a moment. This is not a vague spiritual concept. This is a direct invitation. God is essentially saying, "You have not seen what I am about to show you. And one of the ways you step into what I am doing is by calling on me. Great and mighty things you do not know." That phrase alone should shake something loose inside you, because it means the answer to your problem is not something you can Google. It is something you begin to understand as you bring it before God in prayer. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You have prayed before, you have called out, and it felt like silence answered back. You have waited and wondered if anything was actually happening. And I want to speak directly to that feeling, because it is real and it is valid. But here is something important to understand. The silence you experienced was not absence. God not speaking in your timing does not mean God stopped working. And sometimes His answer looks different than what we expected, but it is always rooted in His goodness. Behind the scenes, in the unseen spaces of your life, things are in motion that your natural eyes cannot detect yet. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed, there is an entire process happening underground before you ever see a single sprout. You cannot see the roots forming, you cannot see the soil shifting, but just because it is invisible does not mean it is not real. God moves the same way. He is working in the hidden places, preparing the ground, aligning the pieces, setting up what you cannot yet perceive. Psalm 50 verse 15 says this, "Call on me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me." Notice what God says there. He calls it a day of trouble. He does not say, "Call on me when everything is going well." He does not say, "Reach out when you have it figured out." He specifically meets you in the trouble, in the middle of the mess, in the season that feels darkest and most uncertain. That is exactly where He is offering to step in. And then there is that last part of the verse that most people miss. "You shall glorify me." What does that tell us? It tells us that your story of breakthrough is not just for you. Your deliverance, your open door, your turnaround, it becomes a testimony. It becomes something that points others toward the same God who came through for you in the way that He knows is best. Your mess becomes a message. Your trial becomes someone else's roadmap. So what does it actually mean to call on God? Because I think sometimes we reduce prayer to a ritual. We treat it like a transaction. We say the right words, check the box, and move on. But calling on God is so much more than that. It is bringing your real self, your unfiltered thoughts, your honest fears, your actual questions into conversation with someone who already knows everything and still wants to hear from you. You do not need perfect words. You do not need a prepared speech. You need honesty. You need openness. You need the willingness to stop pretending you have it all together and simply say, "I need you. I cannot do this alone. I am releasing this to you." That kind of prayer draws you closer to God and changes what is happening inside you, even before anything changes around you. And when you pray that way, something happens on the inside of you before anything changes on the outside. Peace begins to replace the panic. Clarity starts to cut through the confusion. You begin to feel the weight shift because you are no longer the only one carrying it. That is not wishful thinking. That is how your relationship with God is designed to function. Here is something worth sitting with. God is not surprised by what you are going through. He is not scrambling to come up with a plan. He already knows the outcome of your situation. He already sees the door that may open. He already has provision, connection, and direction prepared in ways you may not yet see. The question is not whether He has a plan. The question is whether you will trust Him enough to walk toward it, even when you cannot see it yet. Trust is not passive. Trust is one of the most active, courageous things a human being can do, because it means you keep moving forward when you have no proof that the ground will hold. It means you take the next step in the dark, believing that the light will come. And every single time you choose trust over fear, something in your heart responds to that decision. Now let us talk about what tends to block us from actually calling on God consistently. Because most people agree that prayer matters. Most people believe in God, but daily, consistent, honest prayer is rare. And the biggest blocker is not doubt. It is distraction. We wake up and immediately we are in our phones. We are in our to-do lists. We are in our worries and our schedules. And before we know it, the whole day has passed, and we never stopped to have that conversation. The enemy of your breakthrough is not always an obvious attack. Sometimes it is just busyness. Sometimes it is just distraction. Sometimes it is the subtle lie that you do not have time, or that God already knows, so you do not need to say it out loud. But the invitation in Scripture is clear. Call on me. There is something about intentionally turning your attention and your voice toward God that deepens your connection with Him and creates space for Him to move in your life. So what would it look like if you started every single morning by calling on God before anything else. Before the phone, before the news, before the coffee even. What if the very first thing you did was stop, breathe, and say, God, I am calling on you today. I need you. Show me the great and mighty things I do not know. What would shift in your week? What would shift in your month? What would shift in your year? I want to challenge you with something concrete. For the next 7 mornings, before you check anything on your phone, before you let the noise of the day crowd in, spend 5 minutes in prayer. Just 5 minutes. Bring your real worries. Bring your honest questions. Bring your fears and your hopes and your confusion. And then listen. Not just talk, but listen. Because calling on God is not a monologue. It is a conversation. And in that conversation, you might not hear an audible voice, but you will feel something. You will sense a direction. You will notice a thought that brings unexpected peace. You will find yourself with a clarity you did not have before. That is what it looks like when the God who commands armies also gently leads one heart that is willing to call out to him. Here is something that I want you to hold on to as we move toward the end of this. There is no weapon formed against you that will ultimately prosper. That is not motivational language invented to make you feel good. That is a declaration from Scripture. The attack may come, the pressure may rise, the opposition may feel overwhelming, but none of it has the final word over your life. God does, and God has already secured your victory in Him. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not trapped in your current season. You are not defined by your worst moment or your heaviest struggle. You are someone that the God of the universe has invited into conversation. And when you accept that invitation, when you genuinely call on Him, you step into a life where God works in ways you could never create on your own, often in unexpected and deeply personal ways. The question standing in front of you right now is simple. Will you call on Him today? Not someday, not when things get better, not when you feel more ready. Today, right now. So let me ask you one more time. What are you carrying right now that you were never supposed to carry alone? Bring it. Lay it down. Call on the one who sees you, who loves you, and who is working in your life even now. If this message stirred something in you, tell me in the comments what you are trusting God for. Write it, speak it, walk it out in faith. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, share this with them. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remind someone they are not alone. God is already moving. Keep calling, keep trusting, keep walking forward. Because the God who hears every prayer, who sees every tear, and who has carried you through every season you thought would break you, He is not done writing your story. God is with you. He is for you. And He is moving on your behalf right now.